From everything I've seen and from helping so many people throughout this experience, because it is an experience, is that you are going to grow far more within the job hunting than you did even in college, or you may even in your personal life. So if you're out there feeling alone and frustrated and mad and confused and just heartbroken, it's not you, it's the process. Like, you just simply have to take control of the process. Hello everyone, my name is Zoila Reyna, founder and CEO of Public Health H.I.R.E.D, and you are listening to the Public Health Insight Podcast.
Before we move on, it is important to note that the views expressed in this podcast are our own and do not necessarily represent any of the agencies or organizations we work for or are affiliated with.
One of the solutions that are out there is offered by your company, Public Health H.I.R.E.D, and we touched on the H.I.R.E.D method in the beginning, and you kind of gave an overview of what those individual components are. But I would like to hone into, see what I did there? To the specific components of each of the...
Yeah.
We got to add that special effects. So starting with honing, my understanding is that within honing, there's some kind of narrowing of a focus.
Yes.
Really honing in on specifically the pathway that you'd like to follow.
Yes.
So walk us through what that looks like. I know there's a component of it with, some people might have a specific salary expectation and then make an inclusion-exclusion criteria around that. Maybe where they want to work, what type of field within public health.
Yeah.
Remote, in person. So walk us through what that process of honing looks like in practice.
Yeah, honing,
as much as
I
you
think
can.
the best way to describe it is like it's the first time you get a flashlight. So here's a flashlight, because that's really what is supposed to start to feel like. So you're searching in the dark, you're looking for these jobs that work for you. But you also have to be willing and able to weed out things, because I think at first you're wanting to just apply to about anything that maybe closely is interesting to what you're looking for. But I'm teaching folks on how to read jobs. That's actually one of the big principles of the H of H.I.R.E.D, is you actually have to study the job from the bottom up. So most of us read top down, which is normal. That's how you read anything, right? Like, duh. But you waste so much time on the company. You fall in love with the company. You're just like, yes, this sounds so cool. And then you read the job description when it's sometimes like 2 long pages of information. And then you have little time or energy to then understand the qualifications, which is the bottom. So you have to start from the bottom. I always tell folks, just get a sense if it's a general public health job and then jump to the bottom, and you'll quickly assess if it's really right for you. And the qualifications say everything. So that's where you'll start to read, they want X amount of years in a certain specialty or X amount of years in a skill set. And a lot of folks think that those qualifications will automatically say must have 10 years in public health. And here you just got out of grad school. But that's like 10% of jobs. Like, very, very rarely will a job say must have X amount of years in public health or global health or anything around that area. They actually want, usually 90% of the time or 80% of the time, they want someone who's done project management, community engagement, data analysis, evaluation, just these other, again, key terms, which is why I have a guide around the honing, because you have to search based on these key terms to find those jobs that have those qualifications that align with your interest and your skill set. So I actually don't recommend that you search public health in your key terms. So a lot of do not search public health. Don't search. I think everyone is out there who graduating like, let me look for my job, public health. They type it in and they think their magical, perfect job is going to appear. And it's not the case. Those jobs, you can search public health. And I would say in a given year, I search the term public health 4 to 6 times. That's just 4 to 6, because I'm bored. I'm like, hey, what is public health? What's being categorized? But the best jobs I find are when I've my favorite key terms are, let's see if your listeners are ready. My top favorite key terms are capacity building, technical assistance, implementation, community engagement, and strategic planning. So those are like kind of some of it is because I'm interested in those spaces, but I also use those terms to help my mentees find really cool, unique jobs. So yeah, there's so much more. Like I have a whole guide. I'm currently updating it. It was a 5-page guide, now turning into a 20-page guide. So hopefully,
Oh, wow. And that guide is free, if I remember correctly.
Free. It has
completely free,
and it has over now it's at 1,200 downloads, over 1,000 downloads.
Wow.
Yeah, so folks are grabbing it because it's really been making a difference for individuals. So please go download it. It's free. I don't plan on charging any time for that because sometimes that's all you need is just like, what should I be looking for? And so honing is learning how to read the jobs, study the jobs, but also study those key terms that align with your background.
Right.
Yeah.
So going back to your flashlight analogy, so you have your flashlight and what you're really looking for are those keywords.
Yes.
And then if you're looking for things like public health jobs, you can get led astray. But if you have very focused keywords, then you might be able to find something that aligns with your interests.
Yeah, you're like, honestly, you're like digging for gold. You're mining. You're mining. You're looking for Bitcoin. Maybe that's a more relevant term.
I was going to go there, but I wasn't sure if you were a blockchain Bitcoin person.
You're mining for Bitcoin. You're mining for a golden gem nugget. And then oftentimes I also remind my mentees and followers that if there's a company that posts something and you thought it was great, but it was too senior level or not exactly what you're looking for, go directly on their company website. The companies don't have the capacity to post every single job that they've ever posted. So you have, like, you know, most of us are on Indeed and LinkedIn, such as I am. But when I then go on their website directly, I find something even better. And that's what happened to me is I was stalking my company and I found the job that was right for me, not on LinkedIn, not on Indeed. So go on these company websites. That's definitely part of honing and digging and mining. So
I love that. So we have all these key search terms. We maybe have found a job. You mentioned intercepting, which is the next letter here. So how do we actually catch the eye of the person reviewing the application? In someone in HR or a hiring manager, what makes a robust 2-page resume?
the summary. Your summary is what catches their eye.
I thought we weren't supposed to use those anymore.
No, that's objectives. Get rid of objectives. That's probably what you're thinking about.
Oh, okay. Okay, so objectives, swap
Not
objectives, put summary.
Not profile. It's a summary, and the summary is something that I've mastered, and I help people master in the one of my programs known as the Master Class. I actually talk people through the formula and how to do it for yourself. But what catches the hiring interviews eye is that summary, because you immediately put the qualifications at the top of your resume, like how you meet those qualifications. So that's why when you study the job from the honing, you jump from the bottom of the job to the top of your resume, because you pull that language to the top. And so you immediately address the hiring manager's deepest desires. And so I've actually gotten a lot of feedback from folks who say that they've adopted the summary, and they've even noticed like their summary is highlighted. No other part of their resume is highlighted, but the summary speaks volumes. So I like to think of the summary as it's your elevator pitch, it's your clickbait, it's your soundbite. It's the 5 seconds, like you catch them, and it's not buried at the bottom. A lot of what I see is folks put like their skills or proficiencies on the second page at the bottom. And I'm like, all that needs to be at the top. First thing, like call it out. So yeah, summary is 5 to 8 lines or 5 to 8 phrases. It's very weird grammar, but it's strong language, and there's more information on my Instagram and on my website about it. But I would say what makes these followers and mentees stand out is they've mastered the summary on top of all, tailoring and reading the job and the key terms. But summary.
So why is it so effective if you already have the stuff on your resume? Is it that you just put it right at the top and they don't have to do any work to figure out the mumbo jumbo that's on the page?
Yes.
Is that kind of, is it that simple?
You're saving their time. You're helping them. I mean, think about it. Most resumes, a lot of resumes will just start off with like their education and all of their experiences. But what if you made it easy for the hiring manager to identify why you should be interviewed right away before they even get to your cover letter? And what's nice is I know I'm jumping a little bit into the cover letter, but your summary is tied to the first paragraph of your cover letter. So you hit them twice with why you are the best candidate, not only first in your summary, but you tie it then into your cover letter. And then you drill down deeper into the cover letter.
So would you say, I'm going to ask you essentially, what's the number one thing that people get wrong with their resumes? And I'm guessing summary is one of them. Is there anything else that would make a big difference if someone changed it as well?
One of my other sayings, I have a few of them, but one of my other sayings is lead as a professional. You are not a student or a recent graduate looking for work. You are a working professional who happens to go to school or happens to have graduated. So you are a working professional first. And the problem I see with a lot of students or recent graduates is that they're posting their GPA, their courses, their honors. They were on the dean's list. They just flag themselves too much as a student right away. And I'm like, they don't care about your GPA. They don't care about your courses. They don't care. What they care is, what are your skills? How do you meet the qualifications, which is your summary? Your education needs to be simple. So a lot of times I'm coaching these recent grads of taking out all of the extra they've added in their education and just keep it simple. Where did you go? What degree? And when did you graduate? And then focus on the content of your experience, because we actually, a lot of folks that I see also leave out jobs that are still relevant. If you were a server, if you worked in retail, if you worked in fast food, if you worked in any job, you can still flip it and make it sound like you were contributing to a company in a way that speaks within public health. So that's what the key terms helps with, is making sure you're not undervaluing your experience as well. But I think the most common challenge, going back to your question, is around folks lead as a student. You need to lead as a working professional.
Yeah, we've seen that as well too in our experience.
Yeah,
and we've tried to
hit people up in the head. Yeah.
So you referenced the cover letter side of things, and that's we're really talking about the reflecting part of the H.I.R.E.D method now.
Yeah.
So you mentioned a specific language you use for how someone should be approaching their cover letter is having the right tone.
Yes.
So how do we go about having that right tone? What does that actually look like?
So for example, the first thing that folks will put is, I am so excited to be applying to your position. And I'm like, get rid of your excitement. Like, nobody cares that you're excited. Like, you've already wasted the hiring manager's time. Like, I'm sorry if your listeners are one of those folks, but you just say, I am applying to this position. My qualifications include my degree as well as, and then you cite the first two lines of your summary. You've already identified your qualifications and why you're the ideal candidate, so you remind them again in your first paragraph. Then the challenge that I see is in the second paragraph, folks think that they just have to list anything they're proud of. This is what I've done and I'm really proud of this. But really, is it relevant to the job? So if you're applying to something that's around providing technical assistance, there's weird titles out there like technical assistance officer. It's well, then your second paragraph better be about providing technical assistance in all the ways that you've provided technical assistance. Versus if you're over here applying to a program director position, then you better have in your second paragraph how you've helped implement programs and evaluate them and worked with partners for the implementation. So to me, it's really being awake, be woke, and wake up to what would be the most relevant experiences to this specific job. So I get a lot of folks who are like, I'm just going to not touch my cover letter. I just changed the title. And I'm like, all right, well, I'll see you in a year when you still don't have a job, because you're not addressing the most relevant experiences for that job title, for that. So I would say the maturity comes from being aware of what would the hiring manager care most to hear about, even if it's, and then this is an opportunity to disclose lived experience. So lived experience is cited in a lot of jobs where they say that they value someone who has a background in mental health. You've seen mental health issues, you've seen homelessness challenges, maybe you've worked, if you're applying for the American Cancer Society, they want to know if you've dealt with cancer in your life. So these are things that you can disclose in a mature way on your cover letter. So that's where you put that. Yeah. So that's reflection.
And what And what are your thoughts on for when a cover letter is not specifically asked for as part of a job application? Do you still go ahead and include it? What's your recommendation?
Always. You always include it, even when they don't ask. Always include it.
But it's so easy to just put my resume in and just do the bare minimum.
Make it into the third page. So always submit, even if it's one document. You always want to. Why? Because the person who got the job wrote a cover letter. The only exception is if they explicitly say do not submit a cover letter, but that like happens 1% of the time. Most jobs will accept the cover letter, and it helps you stand out, to be honest. Yeah.
There you go. So we're not letting you off the hook, people. Nope. You have to write that cover letter. You have to put some time and thought into it.
Always.
So let's move on to E, so embodying. So as a part of the H.I.R.E.D method, you also use total recall, the approach to inspire clients to embody their job as they prepare for interviews. So walk us through how that looks.
Oh my gosh. So interviews are this other like nebulous and mystery phase. I would say if we were to go back to the flashlight, it's almost like now you found a cave that you have to crawl into and walk out of. Like now this space has gotten narrower and scarier. So, and you don't know how long it's going to take for you to crawl out of that space, because it could be one interview, it could be 3 interviews, it could be with a panel, snakes are thrown at you. Like there's so much that can happen in the interview process. So, and then sometimes there's an assignment, even an assignment can be thrown at you. So I would say that the best mindset has been teaching folks this approach of, it's almost like reverse engineering your experience. And I teach you how to study your background against the job. So what you're supposed to do with Total Recall is actually take the job announcement that you're interviewing for and actually write and journal next to the job. It can be on the job. It could be something you printed. It could be a journal. But start to really drill down on where you've done those job duties already, and make sure you're aware of the key terms that they're lifting. And you'll actually notice a pattern, a trend, like, oh, wow, they really care about program management. Oh, they really care a lot about stakeholder management. You start to see what they care most about. And then you also start to see your weaknesses. When you write very little on one bullet point, you're like, ooh, what am I going to say if they ask me about, like, have I ever developed materials? And you're like, ooh, I don't know if I've developed materials. So Total Recall almost prepares you to worst case scenarios, as well as highlighting where you have all of this great background in a certain set of the job duties. So it is a way that you're almost facing your fears. You're just like, okay, if they ask me a question around this, I could talk about these experiences. It also protects you from not sounding like a broken record and bringing up just 1 or 2 experiences. Right. That happens so much to people who are just using their current job as that's where you've gotten most of your experience. But the person who got hired is dynamic, is able to raise experiences, frame it, and then drill down into a specific project, whether it was 5 years ago, 10 years ago, yesterday. Like they kind of can go anywhere and just touch their experience in all of these different ways. And that's what Total Recall does, is it really brings your whole self. You embody the job by doing this. And one of the biggest things that I've gotten feedback on is, wait, so you want me to memorize my experience? You want me to how am I supposed to remember 10 pages of things I've written? And I'm like, no, what happens, which is shocking to me, even when I've done this for myself, is that you just naturally have lived it in your memory. It kind of stimulates your prefrontal cortex, and it feels like you just lived it, even though you did something 10 years ago. And you don't feel like you have to memorize it. You journaled it. You told your brain to just categorize it, and it flows. And all of my mentees who go through this, because when you become a mentee with me through the mentorship, you actually get unlimited interview prep. And so I've helped a lot of my mentees through multiple companies, and they're like, it just sort of clicked. Like, I just remembered this is, how I've done stakeholder management, how I've done program implementation in meaningful ways. So it's weird. It's like counterintuitive. You're like, oh my gosh, how am I going to remember all this? And I tell folks, don't put the resume in front of you. Don't put the job announcement in front of you. If you really, really, really need something in front of you when you're interviewing, Pick the 3 key themes or the 3 key terms that you know they care most about, which should have already been identified in your summary, which you should have already been studying when you were interviewing, and then have those 3 key terms next to you. So that way, regardless of what you're saying, and sometimes there's these vague questions where like, oh, what do they really want to hear? Like, why are they asking me that? Then look at those 3 key terms and see if you can ground yourself against that. So it's not going to be this vague answer. It's always about the job. And the latest saying I have is, interviews are not about you. Interviews are about them. Interviews are about the role. Interviews are about the company. It's not about you. So if you're just over here talking about yourself,
okay, I see what you mean.
You're missing it. You have to be talking about yourself through the job, in relation to the job. It's about the job. Even your first question when they say, "Do you have a question for us?" should be about the job. It's about them. It's not about you. It's very backwards. But yeah, that's
I like how you framed that, because I find that one of the parts that's overemphasized, and I'm still going to ask the question even though it's overemphasized, is what are some of the questions that they could ask me? So preparing for the behavioral questions, situational questions, that's one important component of it, and some people maybe do a little bit better at that. And then the basic questions of relating your experience to the job is where people let themselves down, because it's such an easy thing to overlook. So I'm glad that you highlighted the importance of, even though you have it in your head, you go to the interview, you're nervous, you freeze up, and you can't even remember the job that you did 2 years ago, and that would have been a great example. So this kind of gets rid of all of that, so it's no longer a variable during the interview process. So it's simple, but important and effective.
Yeah, my goal is to not make you feel like a deer in headlights of like,
headlights. That's
where did I do that? I feel like I've done that. What was the name of that committee that I orchestrated? Like, there's so much we do from talking with everyone in the last couple of years that, we're shocked at how much we've done. We're like, oh my gosh, I can't believe I did all of these things in this one job, and it's exhausting, but it's the only way to get it out. You have to literally get it out of your head to then position it in the event that they ask you about anything remotely close, to that experience. So that's, you're weaponizing yourself with these responses, with this preparation. You use their job against them, their words against them. That's kind of it.
And you mentioned asking, whether it's the beginning of the interview or at the end, and you mentioned that you should try to focus your questions on the role. You have any examples of what kind of questions someone might ask about the role that you can share?
The easiest one is, usually companies don't divulge like the rich details of the reach or the scope or the populations you'll be working with. They kind of do, like they hint at it, right? Like you might be working with those who have mental health, or maybe you're working in schools. But the best first question you can ask them is, can you tell me more about the partners that you're working with? Who are your priority populations? What's your presence in some of our communities? I would love to learn more about just what's currently, like, what's the activity in this project? So that should be your first question.
That's a good one.
It's really interesting, though, because I remember applying for a job many years ago, and I went in person for this interview, and I had the opportunity to ask a question too. And the question I asked it was a lab position. It was at a biopharmaceutical company. And I literally just asked, and they were really happy that I did. Do you mind if I get a tour of some of the facilities that you have here?
Oh, I love that.
When they heard that, they're like, no one has ever asked us that, and of course, like, we'll love to show you. So they showed me through each and every room and showed me what I would potentially be doing, and of course I ended up getting the job. But they found that to be a really interesting question that no one would even dare to ask. But it really shows, like, you're genuinely interested of where you're going to be working, right?
Yes. So, what does my job look like today if I was and that's, I think a lot of people who come to me, they want to get an insight of like, will the company help promote me? And I'm like, that is a terrible question to ask as your first question. Do not ask that. Like, you have not gotten the job. And secondly, that's what you find out within the culture of the company. The best question that you can ask if you want to find about promotion and, longevity, actually ask the panel or the person who's interviewing, what do you enjoy about your job? How long have you been here? Can you tell me more about, why you're still here? And they will tell you like, oh, actually, you know, I've been here for X amount of time, love my manager, really supportive. I get to work from home. Like you get a sense of the culture, which is a better way. It's kind of an indirect way to find out about like, what are my prospects if I join you? Right. Don't go about it directly. So yeah, keep it about the job or keep it about the people who are interviewing you is the best approach. Right.
Yeah. That's another.
Gordon's like, interesting.
Yeah, that's a good one. Because they'll inevitably tell you, yeah, you know, I first started off in this and then I and then you got your answer right there. You don't need to say,
if they
can
were
I get promoted if I start? Right. That's a good one. And unfortunately, people do ask that, and it kind of leaves a bitter taste. It's kind of a weird question to start.
It's a turnoff. It's a turnoff.
Yeah.
Going back to dating, don't turn them off.
All right, so finishing it off with the D in H.I.R.E.D.
Let's talk about
dollars.
Money.
Everyone likes to talk about dollars or not. A lot of people are very nervous about having that conversation around salary negotiation. So the way I conceptualize it is, first you have to be prepared. So you need to have salary expectations that are based on what the actual job you'll be doing. Some postings do not have a salary indicated on it. So how do we take it from here of not knowing what we could potentially be earning and still putting all these time and resources in it and then be disappointing in the end? So is there a way we can mitigate that? What steps would you recommend?
Great question. First thing is you should have already weeded out those jobs that are going to lowball you. So it all starts.
Okay, how do we do that?
All starts back to honing.
At the beginning.
Are you able to assess the job correctly? One of the biggest, I've been slowly figuring out how do I best describe this phase, because it does lead from the beginning. So a lot of folks that are disappointed in the lowballing, they're like, I applied to this program coordinator position and they can only pay me $50,000, but I have my master's. How do I get them to negotiate more? I'm like, honey, you should have known that coordinator jobs get paid the least. That's the least so you're looking at different, I'm trying to, in my masterclass, I'm hopefully going to have a whole new module around salary negotiation. I do have a couple talking points on general scale and what to look out for. But the most important thing is I found 5 factors that really can give you a hint on what to expect. So the first factor is actually the degree that they call out for. Not your degree, but what degree are they wanting? So if you have your master's and you're applying to bachelor jobs where they say they want a bachelor's, is you're likely going to be lowballed. Not that you will, but you might be. So don't be surprised. So if you want to get those jobs that are paying you $70,000 and over, then look for jobs that say master's preferred, required, desirable, because they value your degree. They will understand the kind of salary you're looking for. So that's number one. Number 2 is it supervisory role? So if you're a supervisor, and a lot of us out there don't want to be supervisors, so that's totally fine. But supervisors, there's a little more wiggle room. You might be able to get paid more. The only caveat to that is government actually pays less for managers. It's very backwards. They actually want you to stay longer to hit higher. So they start you low and then you kind of grow over time. But for any other job, like, is it supervisory? That'll tell you a lot. And then also the state. So here in the United States, I don't know, across the globe how it looks like, but there are certain regions just in general that will pay you less, unfortunately. So I've been trying to capture those states from my followers. They'll be like, oh, I'm getting quoted this. They tell me, they're like, this is how much I'm making for this one job. Versus in California, you can get paid $20,000 more for that same job. So those are the kind of factors. The other 2 factors is, oh my gosh, they're escaping me. I didn't write this down in preparation for the podcast, but I can educate folks more as we go along. But there are 5 general factors that I feel like can help you get to a better range and what to expect, so that way you're not shocked and surprised. And also, I am on my Instagram, and also on my blog. I'll be doing more blogging with a couple other colleagues that are joining me for the content. I want to help folks have a better grounding on what to expect if you're an analyst, associate. So these different levels, like specialist, officer, right? That also is that can also signify. I think that's actually one of the other factors is the title. Oh, and then the fifth factor is the company, the industry. So is it a nonprofit? Is it hospital? Is it government? when you combine these 5 factors, I kind of get a sense of like about a $12,000 range. What will it be? So there's no like specific formula. I've tried to make a formula out of it, but it's too much to weigh. But in general, you can get a sense of like, okay, then I can expect a range within here. And also folks can ask me, DM me, email me like, hey, Zoila, here's a job. These are the responsibilities. What do you think they're going to offer me? And that's been actually one of my new favorite questions from folks is like, throw me a degree, give me your 5 factors and I'll give you a range. And I'm correct about 90% of the time. So I only have a 10% margin of error. So I'm pretty proud of that. But, but yeah, some folks have tested me. They're like, oh, that's my current job. Yeah, you hit it. And I was like, yeah. So yeah, that's you can always just, contact me if you're dealing with like, what do I expect and how do I do this? Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So I wanna play a little game with you here as well. So sure. Let's say I applied to a job, went through all these steps that you are just talking about, the H.I.R.E.D method. I'm at D, so they send me an email. Leshawn, you've been a successful candidate. You are going to be making $75,000. Here are your benefits. We look forward to your response via email. I want $5,000 more dollars. Yeah. How do I approach the situation? Do I email back? What do I say? Or do I try getting a phone call?
No, you email. Everything needs to be in writing. So that's a great question. Even when they offer it to you verbally, you say, great, look forward to reviewing the information via email. Please send it over and I will get back to you within 24 hours or like the next day or the next business day. If they send it to you on Friday, you can respond by Monday. But what you want to do is there's a book by Chris Voss. It's Never Split the Difference.
Never Split the Difference.
Yeah. So Never Split the Difference. It's how I've learned about negotiation and what I teach with my mentees when they're at this point. But when you get it in writing, what you want to do is, first of all, if they disclose the salary, let's make sure that we're assessing if you're getting the max or close to the max. And what you want to do is prepare to ask for a salary adjustment. So you don't say you want more money. You don't say you need more money. You say, hi, thanks for the offer. After review, I would like to request a salary adjustment to this amount. If you want $5,000 more, say they quoted you 60, you want 65, you want to ask for 67,500 because likely they might meet you at that higher 67,500. So now you got even more money. But most of the time they actually meet you in the middle. So they might not give you 67,500, but they might give you 64,500 or so that closer to what you're looking for. So you never ask directly what you want. You go a little above that and you want to give them an odd number. So stay away from round numbers. So I wouldn't even say ask for $5,000 increments. You want to ask for like 3,000, 3,500, 6,500, like these weird numbers, because then it just, in a way, it's psychology. I don't know what it is in particular, but it just signals to them that you're serious, that you've thought about this number like to a T, to a decimal. So the more you can keep it odd, the better. And then they may give you a hard time. I've dealt with mentees where like one of my mentees, the recruiter called her back right away and said, there's no way you're going to get that. Like the recruiter was intimidating her. And here they offered her like 85,000, but we saw their max was like, what was it? Like 107,000. And so we were like, let's ask for 103,500. And the recruiter immediately called her and was like, there's no way you're going to get that. You'd be lucky to get 89,000. And she's like, okay, well, can you still push? Yeah. Can you still push my request forward to the hiring manager? Guess what? She got $100,000 job with the $3,500 sign-on bonus. So she got what she asked for, even though the recruiter was like within the company saying there's no way. So the companies will still intimidate you sometimes, or they'll throw out these justifications that make no sense to you. And you just have to say like, can you still push my request forward, please, for review? Right. And then you won't hear anything for a couple days. In fact, one of my other mentees, she just got a job with the CDC Foundation. And she's like, I haven't heard anything back, Zoila. I'm really, really scared. I'm like, it's the holidays. It's okay. Like, it's fine, And they came back and they gave her, I think right close to the max, just $500 less than the max. So she got what she asked for. I said, why don't we ask for an odd number just $500 less than the max, and she got it. So yes, there's a psychology behind it. So I recommend Never Split the Difference by Chris Voss if you want to learn more.
And there's a lot of complex dynamics there with, just like you said, HR doing handling a lot of the recruiting part. Then there's a hiring manager.
Yes.
And then how close you get to the max or what you requested depends on maybe how quickly the manager wants the recruitment process wrapped up, and how badly, I guess, they want you on the team. So taking HR's word for it before it gets shared with whoever the decision makers are for how much the salary would be is a little bit premature. So I think you're saying just kind of stay the course, be strong with it, let it go through the process, and then see what happens after.
Yeah, and the thing I forgot to mention, Leshawn, with your email, like what you write is not only do you ask for a salary adjustment with that number, but add one sentence that says why you're the ideal candidate. Don't overdo it, but because you've already gone through the interview process, you've already done your resume, you know what they care most about. If you got the job, you know what to say back at them. So you can say the 3 things they care most about. Given that I'm the strongest candidate under these 1, 2, 3 terms, you just kind of throw it back at them. I know I'm ready for this job. Can't wait to join the company. Let me know if you have any questions. And then you can also throw other questions in there around, like, I had a mentee recently negotiate her title. This has happened a few times now. So you can negotiate your title, get a stronger title if you feel like they're not going to budge on the salary. Or if you get the max salary, then that's a sign for you to ask for a stronger title if you're that qualified. So she went from coordinator to specialist. And then other things you can negotiate is like your start date, remote, hybrid life. There's a couple things in there that you can also throw in so that it's not just the salary, but you can kind of make it seem like you've thought about this thoroughly. Like, here are my other questions on top of the salary adjustment I'm requesting. Yeah.
I love that.
Okay.
Yeah. Negotiate your title, guys. It'll help.
Like basically consultant, senior consultant kind of thing.
Yes. Associate consultant. Can I be a lead consultant? Yes.
Okay. All right. So I know we could talk for hours here, and we probably will if I didn't say anything, and that would have been fine. But we have to end this at some point.
Yes.
So Zoila, I want to know from you, given all that we've talked about and your passion, your business, and your lived experience in public health, what are your take-home messages for our audience listening?
I would say that from everything I've seen and from helping so many people throughout this experience, because it is an experience, is that you are going to grow far more within the job hunting than you did even in college, or you may even in your personal life. So if you're out there feeling alone and frustrated and mad and confused and just heartbroken, it's not you, it's the process. Like, you just simply have to take control of the process. I think we internalize this rejection way too much. We think, a lot of my followers or mentees, sadly, some of them gave up like after a while, and they just became teachers, or they became like insurance sellers. Like, they just were like, I couldn't figure it out. So it's not you, it's simply breaking down the process, adopting these different mindsets, welcoming that, okay, maybe I'm doing something wrong. I think that's the hardest thing to accept, that I'm doing something wrong. It's not that it's you, it's just showing up on paper, showing up in your interviews. There's a better way to do it. So just be open to that and just seek out that feedback, which is why I'm happy to help anyone. If you send me a question, DM me, and why I have free resources like the free guide to help you get started on the right path.
And we'll be sure to include all those links in the description.
Yeah.
So feel free to check it out.
Yeah. Well,
Zoila, this was amazing. I've learned a lot.
Yeah.
And I feel I would like to say I know a lot about these things, and I still learned a lot from you. So thank you for sharing your
thank
your
you.
insider knowledge.
I am
there.
here to give anyone a flashlight when they need it through your quest, through your career journey. It is a journey, and I am your number one cheerleader, regardless of where you're coming from, whether you're a current student, recent grad, or working professional. you can definitely break through into higher levels if you're very intentional about it. So I believe in all of you who are listening. You got this. Don't give up. Thank you for your time, Leshawn and Gordon. Thank you for doing this podcast. You're doing such great work as well. So appreciate your time. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening to the Public Health Insight Podcast, your go-to space for informative conversations, inspiring community action. If you enjoy our podcast, be sure to subscribe and leave us a rating on Apple Podcasts or Spotify. See you in the next one.